In today's episode, we speak to Ange Matthews, a first generation investor who was making $40,000 a year and had six figures of debt. She taught herself how to generate seven figures of passive wealth through responsible money management and is now the CEO of the Happy Investor Method. We talked to Ange about her journey of selling rum cakes with her mom as a side hustle to being an investor in the Wiz and hotels and over 89 businesses. If this conversation sounds interesting to you, you don't want to miss out. Tune in today.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we go. Smart investments, money flow.
Hey, babe, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are talking about all things investing and not just investing in the stock market, which is typically what we talk about, but we're going to get into angel investing, real estate investing. We're going to be talking to our special guest, Ange Matthews, who does all different kinds of investing, has been doing this for over 20 years. And she did it after getting herself out of six figures of debt. So, for anybody listening who's like, oh, these people come from money or, their guests are da 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 da, that is not the story. Okay. The story is anybody can do this. You can start where you are, you can learn from today. And so, we're going to get into a really great conversation with Ange so she can break down exactly how she did it and how she's helping others do it today. So, Ange, welcome to the Sugar Daddy Podcast.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for having me.
We are so excited. Let's get into your bio so that everybody knows who we're talking to, and then we'll get into your first money memory. Ange Matthews is an investor, personal finance expert, speaker, and the CEO of the Happy Investor Method. Her goal is to make investing and personal finance accessible and fun for all. As an experienced investor with nearly 20 years of experience, she has supported thousands of individuals through workshops and one-on-one coaching. A first-generation investor, Ange was making $40,000 a year and had six figures of debt. She taught herself how to generate seven figures of passive wealth through responsible money management. Her approach is not only happy, but effective. Since then, she used her investments to become a hotel owner, real estate investor, angel investor, and shareholder in more than 89 companies. Her mission is to help others do the same. Girl, you out here, okay? I love it. We need to get into all of that.
Do it. Let's do it.
Okay, but first, what is your first money memory?
My first money memory is actually me wanting to buy more things with my mom. We were going out to the store, and at the time, there was something we couldn't afford, as a kid. And I'm pretty sure she would have said no to everything because she was just that kind of mom, like blinders on in the stores. Don't touch anything. The pep talk you give to kids
Mm-hmm.
before, don't touch anything. Don't ask for anything. We don't have money to buy anything. And so then I remember really wanting a toy and saying, can't you just get this one? And she said, money doesn't grow on trees. And I literally remember thinking in that moment, that is preposterous. Isn't money made out of paper? Doesn't paper come from trees? And I just remember thinking so literally that is absolutely not true. And that was a really defining moment for me because that's when I realized that everybody doesn't know everything or people might see things a different way. And not that that's okay, but you just couldn't tell me nothing. I was just like, money absolutely grows on trees. It is made of trees. I just don't understand where the communication is here. And so that's actually one of my first, if not first, money memories.
How old were you when that happened?
I was probably about 6 or 7.
I could see our daughter saying something like that. Like, we talked about where paper comes from.
I can
And
see Roman saying that because he's a smartass.
he is, he is a smart aleck. Oh my gosh. Okay, so did you end up getting what you asked for that day, or did you leave empty-handed?
We left empty-handed. The rules are the rules. And
Yeah.
I did not say that out loud because I probably
Oh.
would have gotten popped. And that's also, just internal dialogue conversation. I had the sense to
Mhm.
know you just stop asking because you don't want to, piss your parents off too much. At
Yeah.
least for me, I knew my mom was always really stressed out about money or different things. And so if I asked and she said no, I knew that asking again, she wasn't the one to get it that way. It would probably come up again or be a birthday present or something if I really, really wanted it.
So within your household, did you guys have any conversations about money?
We had conversations about not having enough money. So we didn't really speak about how to manage it. We didn't speak about what to do with it to make it grow. In my household, my parents were immigrants. And so when they came to the US, somehow they received a green card and a credit card at the same time. And
Oh,
so, with that said, they thought that it just meant, hey, you're going to use this credit card and get whatever you need. No one really spoke to them about predatory practices around APRs and all that. And so a lot of my life was about built like paying back this credit card debt that had snowballed so much. And so for me, a lot about the money conversations we had was mainly about we don't have enough money. Like we have to do, limited school lunch, or we're going to put your sister through college and we're going to take another loan on top of that. And so that was kind of the conversation we had. I didn't really talk about how to manage it or how to make it.
Where are your parents from originally?
Guyana in South America. Technically, South America, but we're West Indian in culture.
okay, okay. We have had a lot of immigrant, first generation children on the show. And I always say, because my mom's from Germany, immigrant parents are built different. Like you, because even my friends here, we grew up in the U.S. For the most part. Some of us speak more than one language. Like it kind of all ranges. But that immigrant parent experience, even if it's just one parent, you're built different. It just is what it is. You know?
Absolutely. It's when someone tells me that they're first generation or second generation, immediately I say less. I already know
You
almost
already
everything I
know.
need to know about you and your upbringing and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the grit, the drive, the insecurities, the perfectionism, all those things that kind of go into being kind of the first.
The first. Yeah. The expectations. And then couple that with if you're the firstborn daughter and it's a wrap. Like, whew, that's a lot of trauma right there.
Yeah. A lot of healing.
A lot of healing that needs to be done that we're trying to undo with our children. Yes, absolutely. I get it. I see you. And
What are
let's,
some of the
oh,
Oh,
no, no,
I had
no.
a
Go ahead.
question for you all. What are some of the lessons that you learned from, say, your immigrant background that you still carry on to your kids?
Well, something that you said kind of sparked the way we operate with our kids about money. Because even now, when I talk to my parents about their experience, like my dad is, Florida born and bred, Broward County, Miami Dade, like they didn't have anything. He's one of 11. He always jokes like they had a bunch of children because they needed people to work, right? Like my grandfather had a corner store and like you had work to do. He was ironing his clothes at a very young age, help. I mean, he had work to do and he's the second youngest out of the 11. And then with my mom, she came over to the States when she was 19. And, she talks to me about like the apartments that my parents lived in with the roaches crawling across the counter and just, like stretching every dollar, having to, really cut the coupons, sacrifice at the grocery store and make it all work. And those are not memories that I have. We always had enough. We weren't going to be in excess. I didn't have the brand names and all the things that you want in high school or middle school. That just wasn't even an option. And even if it would have been, it still wouldn't have been. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not where the value is placed in our home. But one thing that we're very conscious of is we talk to our kids about money all the time. We want it to just be regular conversation, dinner table conversation. Like, you can ask us anything about it, we will tell you about it. But even the other day, I took the kids to the dollar store to get something for a friend, like a little classroom party. And I said, "We are not here for you. Please don't ask for anything. This is our budget and this is what we're here to get. So this is our goal." And they stuck to it. And they know sometimes, I'll give in. But when I'm serious, I try to say things like, this is what we're spending money on. This is what we've planned for. This is what we budgeted for. We try to stay away from language of that scarcity of we can't afford that. We can't get that right now. Don't ask. We want to spin it to we didn't plan to buy this or this is not our focus today. Today we're focused on other people, not ourselves. And so I think we're conscious of those kinds of conversations where we don't want them to have like a scarcity mindset.
Yeah, and I would say my upbringing was very different than hers.
Yeah.
In the sense, my mom raised my brother and I, but thankfully my mom was a college professor, so she made good money. Money was never an issue. So I'd say we grew up like upper middle class. And I would say the biggest thing I took, as a black person growing up in a single parent household was that I was fortunate enough that my mom's peers that were around, like my mom's friends were doctors, attorneys, engineers, architects. So I saw that from a very young age. And like the concept of like me having a limitation on what I could be didn't exist because I'd already grown up seeing, black people in these roles my entire life. So I would say that's one of the biggest things I took from being a kid. But my mom is very frugal,
The most frugal person you will
which is
meet.
which is good because that's how we were able to do the things that we wanted to do. Like my brother and I used to play soccer, and we used to go overseas during the summer and spend like 3 weeks in Europe playing soccer. And my mom did that all on her own. But I would definitely say her frugality has filtered into mine. So I'm very good at deciphering between a want and a need. And sometimes I should just go ahead and buy something, and I kind of
It takes
think about it too long,
months and months and
especially when
months.
it's, if it's a need, that's fine. But when it's wants,
He's very disciplined.
I can take my time on those.
Yeah.
Love that. I love that. It pretty much, I think the difference is for both of you, it might have been frugality by choice, not circumstance.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I think that's a really great thing to pass on to your kids.
Yeah. Well, and they know wants versus needs. We talk about that. And even, for the holidays, we typically do like one of the angel adoptions through the Salvation Army. And so, we'll typically like adopt, quote unquote, adopt some children that are around their age. And then we talk about, what the budget is, what's on the list. And we talk about, okay, well, they need socks, underwear, maybe a new jacket, et cetera, et cetera. And then we say, but they also want these dolls, these cars, these trucks, whatever. And so we typically say, what should we buy first? What should we absolutely make sure that we get with the money that we have? And our daughter, who's now 7, she'll say, well, you have to have clean underwear or you have to have socks. We don't want their feet to be, cold. And of course, our son, who's a little bit younger, is like, no, we got to get the trucks. They'll be happiest with the trucks. So, they're learning, but we're starting that conversation of, well, let's see if we can do all of it within this budget, and then we talk about, well, yeah, this doll is $30 versus this doll that is just as nice, but maybe we can get her something else, maybe a board game or something she can do with her family. And so we talk about kind of stretching the dollar, but also prioritizing where the money goes. And so, yeah, we try to instill those lessons just in day-to-day conversation. And I think I would say our kids are very comfortable asking about money, talking about money, etc.
Saying all that stuff just made me laugh 'cause it made me think about like
The hot tub.
well how no
Oh.
how like and you were talking about like growing up where like you didn't have money and so you knew like from your parents like we don't have money for this. I distinctly remember as a child my mom always telling me I have money. You don't have any
You
money.
you have nothing.
She's
Yeah.
like I have money but you're poor.
Clear.
Yes, let's draw the line. Okay, that is way too much about us, Ange. You are our special guest. Stop asking us questions, girl. That's our job. Okay? Let's get back to it. Okay. We need to know how you go from the household that you grew up in to you personally being in debt. Like, we would love to know where that debt came from. Was it student loans? Was it you guys didn't talk about money, so it was maybe some credit cards? Whatever that might be, we would love to hear that. And then your journey into, oh crap, what did I do with my money? And I've got to get myself out of this situation. Can you take us through that?
Sure. So for me, it's really interesting because even though I grew up one way, I still had clearly an appetite and a desire for more. And when I started, it's crazy how generational patterns develop. because you would think that considering a lot of the strife in my life came from my parents' credit card debt and their history with loans and all that, you would think I'd stay so far away from it,
You can
but
go
I
in 2
didn't.
directions.
I mean, yeah, in hindsight, I would
Yeah.
think, maybe if someone gets burned, don't touch the thing that burned them. But for me, I just thought, okay, well, this is just how you live. And so when I, went to college, first of all, there wasn't much money left for me for college. My parents had taken out student loans for my sister. She did all the things she was supposed to, as a dutiful immigrant daughter. She got into Columbia, and then they were
Mm.
like, "Whoa, we need Columbia money."
Oh,
And
yeah.
so they took out the loans, they got second jobs, they did whatever they had to do. And all this to say, by the time it was my turn to go, there really wasn't much left in terms of resources or even energy because they were a little bit older by then. And so I took a lot of student loans out. My mom did take a loan out against her 401k to help me. And then also at the same time, that was covered. But then I also stopped at this table that said, hey, you can have access to $38,000.
Oh my gosh, those
Just sign up for this
tables. What was
credit
it, like
card.
freshman orientation day, when they're all lined up and
Yeah.
you get the free T-shirt?
The water bottle.
Or the water yeah,
Exact.
the water bottle, mhm,
Mhm. The
maybe a
Nalgene, the thing.
keychain. Yep, yep, yep.
Yes. And I thought, you know what? Why not? I'll pay this off. I'm in college. I'm going to have an amazing job after. And I can just, no payments for 36 months, whatever that is. And at the time, this was like a very big time in credit card land where I don't even think they make these offers anymore. This was pre-recession, like '07, '08 recession. And so all this to say, I just started using this card like it was my permission to live the best fabulous life I had ever wanted. And so here, and this is a really interesting take on credit cards. A lot of people get a lot of anxiety around credit card debt and debt. But for me, as someone who knows the value of having access to money when there is no access, I'll always have a spirit of gratitude around someone being able to give you something without you having it in that moment. And so for me, I went around the world. I took a backpacking trip to Europe. I mean, I really lived my life with this somewhat money passport. And then came the graduating from college, and then all the student loans started to needing to be paid back, and I couldn't defer credit card payments, and I only had a job that was paying me $40,000 a year, and it literally felt so isolating because I didn't think anyone else had got themselves in the hole that I got it myself into, and then it also felt like I'm never gonna get out of this ditch, and it was really overwhelming, and I think this was in the era where we didn't talk about what mental health is, we didn't talk about what financial, insecurity and instability could do just as a long-term, persistent problem, and I remember being stuck in this job and hating it, and it was toxic before we even, all became woke to what toxic is, but it
Mhm.
was a very toxic environment, and I would just cry in the stairwell. I'd cry in the bathroom. I'd like blow my nose and flush at the same time so
Oh.
no one could hear
Oh.
could hear it. It was, like, really that bad, and then I'd have to say, like, "Okay, girl, like, let's just put on our big panties and go back out there because what else is there to do?" And so that was actually the defining moment that I was just like, "This is not it." And I calculated how much I would have to make in order to pay off the debt so that I can just get back to normalcy. And I would have to ask for maybe like a $65,000 salary to be able to make all the payments on all the debt and still maybe move out of my parents' basement.
So we were talking
This
credit card debt and student loans.
credit card and student loan, that was a
Mhm.
part of the six figures. And so once that happened and I calculated it, I went and asked for a raise.
Ooh.
I know, right? Ballsy. I was like, "You know
Yeah,
what?
I
I
love
did it.
that for
I just need it."
you.
And I totally work really hard. I work
Yes.
13-hour days. I was a recruiter at the time, and I thought, you know what? This is amazing. I quantified my pay with the amount of hours I was putting in. And I said, this is actually under minimum wage what I'm getting paid if I had to calculate this. For some of us out there, this is the case when you start thinking about how much work you're putting in. And then when I went to them with my, little spreadsheet and the value that I'm bringing to the team, and also, there was the unspoken value of being a woman in the company because it was a tech company, being a person of color in the company. They had me on their website. I was not getting compensated for
Oh.
this. I was literally
Mhm.
poster child here. And
Yeah.
then they just said, no, we don't have room in the budget for this.
Then take my face off your website, please. Thank you.
Well, that's so funny because I'm the recruiter and I cut the checks. And every time I call you that someone says that they would love to take this job offer, but they need $10,000 more, $20,000 more, y'all
Well, you
figure it
find
out.
it.
Mhm.
You find it because money is kind of like figure outable, but
Yes.
they didn't want to figure it out for me.
Mm.
The one thing that I want to highlight that you did is that once you had all those, your student loan payments having to come in and the credit card was due, that you actually quantified how much the debt was and what you actually needed from a salary standpoint in order to actually pay it off. Because so many people do not do that.
Run the
They
numbers.
don't run the
Gotta
numbers.
run
They
the
have
numbers.
just they see the debt that they owe, and they have no idea like, hey, I need to make this amount of money in order to pay it off by this given time, and
Mhm.
they don't see an end goal to it. And I think that's one of the biggest misses that people have is that they don't have the end date of like, if I'm able to pay this amount, I will be done by this date.
Mhm.
And I think that's huge.
Yeah, because it obviously propelled you into, okay, I know what I need to make. I need to ask for this raise. I'm going to quantify all the things I'm bringing to this company. Like it really, you know, made it crystal clear what your action plan was and what you needed.
I also want to call out that we had met Ange at FinCon, and from the interactions I've had with her, hearing the story of you crying in the stairwell
I
seems like a
know.
complete 180 of who you are today. So if you're somebody out there that's listening to this episode and you're like, oh, she's so confident and everything like that, but she was like, I'm the person that cries in the stairwell, I can't become that. Like I said, I'm very surprised to hear that that was her and obviously the progression to who she is today.
Yeah. We all start somewhere.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all a work in progress. And I'm very proud of who I am today. And when I think about it, I also get really excited for who I will be, considering all the things that I've overcome. And I think for, anyone listening and even all of us, we understand that. To me, when folks say, hey, how do you have so much confidence? It's not here all the time. It's not because I'm human, right? We all
Mhm.
have our moments, and it's kind of a beautiful thing about the experience. But what's really nice is that we also have receipts from our past experiences. And so when I do have that moment, just now when I spoke about the stairwell experience, yeah, I go back there because it was traumatizing as hell. And when I think about it, I actually feel it. And I identify that feeling in other parts of my life. And when I identify that feeling, it's like, oh, well, we can overcome that feeling because we've overcome it probably about 20 different times at this point. And
Mhm.
so I have a little bit of a SOP that kicks in that just like, oh, this is it. Pull up the SOP file on like how to make Ange like be great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love
And it
that.
works.
Okay, so what happened? They denied your raise. Did you stay or did you go? What was next?
Did I stay or did I go? Well, I stayed. And the
Okay.
reason why was because I tried to, so I've never said this out loud, which is funny because I do a lot of interviews, but I guess it's time. I really wanted to go, but the thing is that I hadn't completed my degree. And so I had like 3 credits to complete my bachelor's. And for some reason, there was a huge mental block. And I think it was because I didn't know what that next step was going to be for me. And everyone kind of thought maybe I'd be a lawyer or something. And I didn't want to go to law school. So I was like, you know what? If I don't have a degree, well, technically, I can't go forward. Self sabotage. And so when time came for me to start applying to jobs, they'd say, like, what's your degree? What's your highest level of education? And I didn't have a complete degree. In hindsight, I know that really doesn't mean much. But at that point, it also made me feel trapped because I thought, well, who's going to hire me if I don't even have my degree, like a bachelor's at the time? And so I stayed, but what I did was I started Googling. Right. And at the time, Google, of course, smartest entity that, especially at the time. Now it's a little different. Now folks might go to chat. But at the time, I Googled, how do you become rich? I literally was like,
I
how
love
do you
that.
become rich? Because I didn't really have a lot of role models. Like, Brandon, you were saying that you had people around you that were peers and counterparts to your mom. You had community. And I don't know if you were able to ask them, but there were people within a hand's reach. I didn't have anyone. And so I asked Google, and Google, I said, how do you become rich? How are millionaires created? And I saw a ridiculously alarming stat that about 90% of millionaires inherit their wealth.
Mm.
The ones who stay like the wealthiest, it's inherited. So I thought, okay, great. The kids are good. No kids in existence, but they'll be good at some point when they get created because I'm going to figure this out. But what do we do about me? And then it what turned out to be was that I had to Google, how do you become self-made? How do you actually become self-made, and how do you keep it? And so a lot of the results said you can, become a software engineer, you can get this high-paying job. And I said, no, I don't want to, I don't want to work forever. And then it said you can do two things, entrepreneurship or you can do investing. That's kind of how the best self-made folks are actually sustainably self-made. They control, and what I heard was you control your money. You control how much it makes, right? It's unlimited potential. And so then I started doing both. I went to my mom who had recently gotten laid off and I said, Ellen girl, she's West Indian. I was like, you know what? We're gonna make some rum cakes and we're gonna go sell it in markets. Cause I need
Ooh.
money, you need money. We could do this together. And that's literally what we did. I
Oh
did
my
a
gosh.
repurposing jewelry company, which I also sold. We would rent a tent out in a market and half of it would be rum cakes, half of it would be jewelry. I mean, hustling.
I
And then
love
I
it.
also opened up a brokerage account. And for every percentage I made, which is why I always advocate percentages over dollars, every percentage I made, about 10%, I put it in an investment account and I invested in things. And
So
there were times when I
while
couldn't afford it, but I
while
did it.
you were, I'm assuming, also paying off debt, you were focusing on investing.
Yes. Well, I actually deferred a lot. Everything that could be deferred, I deferred it. Because when I
Okay.
realized that I couldn't financially pay back all that debt, like even 65,000 were for minimum payments. It wasn't an actual payoff plan, or it would be that in like 20, 30 years. And I thought about the opportunity cost of that money. So I'm a little bit unconventional, in terms of a personal finance expert, where a lot of people advocate for being debt free. I don't. I
We don't
advocate for
either.
doing both.
Yeah.
Like, debt free still equals zero.
Mhm.
Negative 25,000, negative 255,000, and zero to me is still the same. Like, you ain't got no money.
Yeah.
And so
I love it.
I needed to change that conversation.
Mhm.
And so I thought, when I started thinking about interest rates and what if I can make my money grow faster than the debt? What if I can make my money grow faster than I was actually making it? And so I took a lot of that discretionary money because, people who want to pay debt, they think you're going to spend all your money to pay off the debt. No, you're not. You're going to live. You're going to go to the movies. You'll go out with friends for drinks. You're going to still live your life because that's the whole point of it all. What's the point of working if you can't live? And so I actually just started taking a lot of that living money and I started repurposing it. And so when I started having these side hustles, I did not necessarily pay more on debt. I wanted to give Google a try. And that's when I started investing.
No, I agree with you 100% because I think when people allocate all the excess money they have to paying off their debt, they eventually pay it off, but then they still don't have anything saved up. So inevitably something happens because life always happens and you go right back into debt. So you got to do both at the same time so that you could break that cycle.
Absolutely right.
So you were on Google, you figured out entrepreneurship with the rum cakes and the jewelry and investing. Were you on blogs? I mean, this is like what, still 2000, early 2010s-ish?
No, this is like '08.
Still '08. Okay. So did you read any books? I mean, like,
There weren't a ton of like
I know there's not a ton
there
of
wasn't a
stuff.
ton
So,
of
like, how
personal.
did you even know, okay, let me open this brokerage account? This is how I started. Like, what was that journey? Because that's a
This was
lot
the
to dive
wild, wild
into.
west.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay.
This was the wild, wild west of personal finance. I don't think even existed as the coined term. And so I heard about Warren Buffett. And I really, really went deep into his story, into coming from like a middle class background. A lot of people didn't talk about wealth and their journey on it very much then. There were some blogs. No one looked like me. No one was a woman. There was Susie Orman,
Mhm.
but Susie was totally different and also didn't talk about wealth accumulation. She mainly spoke about how to manage your finances. But the the hidden thing there was you have to have finances to manage.
Yeah.
And so she didn't really resonate with me. I was like, "Susie girl, great, but not it." And so, but Warren was the one who did resonate the most with me, and that's where I learned about value investing and investing in solid companies around you and seeing opportunities when other people didn't. And so I started looking for opportunities that other people wouldn't see. So I was working in recruiting at a web design firm, and I invested in Adobe because every single person I hired had to have Adobe knowledge. You can't work at a web design firm without it. Every time we did a client's website, and it got published live, I immediately bought their stock if it was publicly traded because I knew if they were gonna go to an e-commerce platform, they're gonna make so much more money. And so that's the way I started doing it, and I made a lot of mistakes, in 2008, I don't know if a lot of you know, but, you know,
Wasn't
the
the
market
time.
got decimated, not in the
Yeah.
way that it does it now, like, these little stumbles are nothing compared to decimated, wiped out like 40, 60%. And I remember looking at my portfolio and thinking, oh, this is like the negative side of this that people talk about, the risky. The folks who invested in the 2000s who were like, you're risking all your money and doing this. And I was in it as this little baby investor with my hard earned money. And I remember thinking, man, I could have put that to the debt or I could have gone to yacht week with my friends.
Yeah.
And it's down. And that's when I started researching, in times like that, you don't want to panic. Times like that, things are actually on sale. And that was a huge mindset shift for me. Seeing that as a sale, seeing that as like a Macy's 1 day sale, I started saving up for the dips. I was like, oh, we about to go shopping. I literally had a list of companies that I could not wait to buy. And I would wait for them to go on sale and I would just like shop. I got
I
really
love that.
obsessed.
I mean, they kinda say, like, you're not a real investor until you've gone through one of those huge dips, because I mean,
Mm.
with her, when I talked to her about it, I'm like, "These dips don't bother me." I'm like,
Yeah.
"It's part of the process," and like you said, things go on sale. This is the time to take some opportunity.
But I love how you were thinking about it, because you're like, "Okay, I'm about to go shopping," right? But your mindset is totally different than like, "Oh, let me get that new Louis bag," or "Let me get these red bottoms," or, whatever people spend their hard-earned money on that is not an investment. It's not going to keep you warm when you're 60 and you wanna be living your best life? So, the fact that you really were able to pivot your mindset and just go for it, I think is really incredible, especially because you, again, did it on your own. You didn't do it with somebody holding your hand or with a support system around you. Kudos to you for figuring that out so early. And then I love what you said too about, oh, everybody's using Adobe. Like, this must be important. Let me invest in it. Or, I think that point of view too, I mean, you were really paying attention, which I think is really neat.
I think that's really important as well because when I'm working with clients, I don't necessarily, advise them on individual stocks. I'm like, there's so many different ways to evaluate a stock. I'm not going to do that for you. If you want to do it, you can do it on your own. But I was like, if you're going to do it, start within your own industry. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in the industry that forwards and backwards because you do that 8+ hours a day? I was like, I can't advise you on your industry. I don't know anything about it. So, what are the trends you're seeing in any public companies that could be traded within what you do for a living? So that's very interesting
Absolutely.
that's how you start and you saw those things.
It is. And I think here comes the thing is that when you start and you start investing in all these different things, you're going to start noticing the patterns, and the things that do well, or at least the hunches you have, that intuition. It typically is around the things that are closer to you. If you're a mother and you're investing in, I don't know, baby formula or this new technology for kids to keep them alive longer in some way, you're going to know a lot more about that than the person who doesn't have kids. And so I think what it does is it gives you a natural sense of analysis, which is something that I think a lot of people don't think is necessary, but you do have to have kind of the basics. Once I started getting slaughtered in the market, I really had to sit back and analyze some of the companies that made it and the companies that didn't make it. And I actually printed it out and I started going on their websites, their investor relations pages, because I was so baffled as to like, why did some company make it and another company did it when they both seemed like pretty good? And it seemed as if both were really excited about them. And so, or all the people were excited about them. And so that's what I think, if you are going to go down this rabbit hole of, you know, having an advisor and doing this on your own, then you really want to get some analysis in your belt because there are some key differences between a successful and an unsuccessful company.
What are those key differences? Top 3, if you had to name them.
Top three.
I have
I
one.
love to use analogies because it's the easiest way to teach, and I'm an educator. And so I like people to think about companies in terms of actual people because who'd have thought companies are run by actual people? And so you want to think about, hey, there's publicly traded and not publicly traded. So there's publicly traded, meaning you can get it on the stock market. Not publicly traded means that it's private, and if you don't have a hookup, you're not gonna get invited to the party. And so once you do that, once you're doing publicly traded, meaning it's the regular stock market, you have an invite to the party because everyone gets invited to the party. That's something a lot of people don't know, that regular people can invest and go to the stock market party. What you wanna do is start thinking about, well, who are the players in the party? Now, when I think about the players in the party, who am I going to trust more? And I want you to think about this as a college student or a high school student who's about to go off to college. When they get to the party on the stock market, they're a college student. Now, who's going to be a better college student? Is it going to be the kid who has had straight A's like their whole life? Or is it going to be the kid who, kind of cut out on school, got C's, didn't really do much? Now, I will say that it can go both ways, right? So we're going for the odds are. Odds are the kid at the party who's the most responsible are the ones who have the straight A's, right? Odds are. Again, there are outliers. We all know them. And so we're not going to talk about them now. And what that means is I want to make sure that they have good grades, right? When I'm at the party, I want to hang out with a good grade kid. And so you can actually go and see, hey, are they making money? Are they good at making money? Or is there a kid who doesn't really have good grades? Meaning, is there a company who sucks at making money? And not just making money, are they good at keeping the money that they make? And so that's one big criteria. Is the company profitable? And if they're profitable, are they good at actually keeping the profits? Because an example would be Tesla was, had a really great run, but they didn't really become profitable for years, right? And so when you looked at the numbers, you're like, wow, you're super popular and you're kind of not really doing much on the inside. And so
Mhm.
that's a really
Very
big
risky.
criteria. And the other criteria that I look for is also leadership. So I want to see who's leading this company, what experience do they have. You can actually search behind and see how many shares they own of the company that they're leading. Are they selling those shares? Are they buying it? Where did they come from? And so you'll start to notice in the leadership game that one person would come from this company and go to that company and this company. And sometimes it might just be the founder that's there and super passionate, like Steve Jobs. And so those are some of the things that really stick out to me when thinking about, is a company something that I really want to hang out? Is that the company that I'm really going to say, like, yes, you're the person at the party that no one is holding your hair back, that you're skipping curfew. I don't want I don't want that person at the party. You might be fun to
Mhm.
party with, but you're not going to be fun to make me money. So I need to
Yeah.
make sure that you're solid, because if you can't make yourself money, you can't make me money.
Mhm. Are you looking at, like, 10Ks when you're looking up the public companies to figure out, are they making money? Are they keeping money? Are they managing it properly? Or what kind of resources are you using to get this information?
So I'm a simple, simple person. The happy investor method is a very simple strategy. And so we'll go into 10Ks maybe in our super advanced programs, but really a lot of this information is available from like our super duper OG best friend, Google.
Google.
And so
Our OG
it's crazy.
bestie.
Google's like OG now.
Yeah, it is.
And specifically Google. And I have done tests on this to see if chat could be like my new business bestie or investment bestie versus Google. It cannot. It still gives a lot of fake information. We're training a chat right now to make it um, be really great, but overall, they're not there yet. They will give you false information a lot of times. And if you don't know how to check it, you're going to believe false information. But going on Google Finance, go into the finance tab of Google, put in the company name, and you're going to actually see a balance sheet. It's all user friendly. If they don't do well with money and they lost money, it's red. Go
Okay,
figure.
yeah. If it's
If
good,
they
it's
didn't,
green.
it's green or black. It's
Or
very
black, yeah.
user friendly. And so you don't need to go into the K1. You don't even need to do all that nowadays. Back in the day you did, but now it's all open and easy to understand
I
if you know
love
what you're
that.
looking for.
Yeah, I love that. Is that so you teach people in the happy investor method what to look for?
We teach them what to look for. We teach them how to understand if it's with the trend or against a trend. We teach them very simple chart reading. Simple. We don't do candles, we do lines. And all that to say is just because a picture says 1,000 words, and to not be able how to understand how to see that picture, you could be losing so much time and money. And so we teach that. We teach how to match it to your personality, because not every stock is for you. We get a lot of questions about that. How do I know if I'm investing in a conscientious company? Or how do I know if their goals align with my goals? That's actually been a really popular question
Like
lately.
the ESG investing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It looked like you were gonna say something.
No.
Okay. I mean, I love how you are figuring all this out on your own back in, 2008 recession time. You're hungry for it, you're making it work. How do you go from I'm doing this for myself to hey, I have a company and now I'm teaching people and I'm taking the main stage at conferences. Oh, and I'm securing six-figure deals with Fortune 500 companies to license my courses. I mean, how did we get there? Walk us through it, Ange.
Grace of God. Um, literally and like literally. But for me, I actually thought I was the only one who didn't know this because I'd go out to parties or social functions and everyone just seemed to seem as if they had their stuff together. And so I really thought I was late to the party. And because I couldn't understand that I had to be late because I couldn't understand that if so many people knew what to do, why wouldn't they show me what to do? So either no one knew or everyone knew and I wasn't in on it. That's the way that I
I think
interpreted
you
it.
were early to the party, but I'm sure you
I
figured that
was
out.
super early to the party, but I
Yeah.
didn't that's the thing, like, when you're in a, when you're in your own echo chamber, and for me, I was late to the party when I'd meet doctors or lawyers and they talk about, their 401ks and contributing to their 401ks. At that job, I was like, I don't need you you're not matching, no 401k for me. Probably not the best at the time, but I thought like I just didn't know any better. And so all that to say, I was doing it silently for 9 years, like,
9
on my
years?
own, not talking about it to anybody, and I really wasn't even that consistent with it for 9 years because this entrepreneurship situation, it really takes a lot out of you financially and emotionally. So once I did eventually leave the job, I didn't really have that much discretionary income to invest, and I stopped investing for a couple of years. I didn't cash anything out, it was just there in the background growing, and then my dad had gotten sick. And it was a really hard time in our lives, and there really wasn't enough money. I had gone through whatever savings I had. He had gone through whatever savings he had. And it was really hard to take care of him, get organic food, the co-pays, all the stuff of what it means to be a caretaker in our country, which is why I always shout out the caretakers because we don't talk about it enough. And it's an eventuality for almost all of us. And so, all that to say, I, was praying about it or in my spirit one day, and I was just kind of one of those bathroom moments where I was, really there sitting down, and I'm just like, we are screwed. I just cannot see a way out of this. And then something was just like, go check the accounts. And it's funny because in that moment, I had that other thought, like when you kind of talk to yourself inside, I thought, and I know, ain't nothing in them accounts. There is a negative right now in one of those accounts. So I don't even want to talk about this right now. Stop with the accounts, the accounts, the accounts. But my spirit was just saying, no, the accounts. And it was actually my brokerage accounts. And I went in there and this like 6,000 bucks that I had put in, which was 500 bucks, some months. It was all this stuff that I did before. And it was 6,750 and I had turned to $96,000.
Gosh.
And I was like, "Oh, shoot."
I love how you remember the number because you're like, "I'm not gonna forget that moment."
I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
$6,750,000 turned into 900. Like, what? What is this? Like, we're not poor? I thought we were poor. We're not poor? What? What is happening right now? Did past Ange say future Ange? It was like finding a time capsule with like money and gems. And that's when I thought to myself, holy crap, this thing works. Like
You're like, "I got it. I figured it
9 years later.
out."
I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
what the deuce? This is ridiculous." Like, Warren knew what he was talking about. I didn't do anything. Like, the money had its own life and I had my life. And so all that to say, and there were things that didn't work, but the things that did work completely outpaced the things that didn't. And so that's when I started realizing, like, wow, we're onto something here. And when I saw my results versus other people's results, it was that much better. Right. And so other people, they were like, yeah, my money doubled. But no, 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 no. That money didn't double. It like quadrupled. And so that's when I started talking about it in my small circles, which is why it's important to be in those like small circles because I said like, hey, I don't know, maybe you're like me who didn't know what to do, but I've been doing this on the side. And then I had a business and it was a social media agency and I still was me. So I was, an influencer in that space. I would go on talk shows. I was a regular contributor on Sirius XM. And after a while, I just started really hating tech. I just didn't, didn't enjoy the social media-ness of it, the disconnection, especially having eventually had lost my dad, understanding the value of, just being with your loved ones and being extremely present with them. And so I said, "You know what? It hurts me when I see folks on social media, but I'm actually okay because I own these companies and I'm kinda getting paid for it, so, do you. And you're making me wealthier and, I'll just say pay attention to your loved ones, and if you don't want to, it's okay to." And then at the time, my friends would, also be spending so much money on ads because they were entrepreneurs, and I'd say, "I hope you own Facebook for all this money that you're giving them." And they would say,
Yes.
"No. Why would I own it? Wait." And then I'd pull up my phone and I'd show them the price and I'd say, you just bought like one of their employees for all those ads. And I know every time they add an employee, they typically make this much more revenue per employee. So as an owner, I just want to say again, thank you. And maybe you might want to consider making this a more reciprocal relationship. And so that's how it started. And as I started talking more about it, I had a little bit of a platform, being on SiriusXM. And I just started talking about like, hey, y'all, stop being consumers. Let's be owners. And that was my message. Instead of using these companies and having them use us, how can we own them? How can we make a more balanced relationship? And then it started like that. And then I did a boot camp because folks were like, the person who had me on air was like, "Girl, I have you here to talk about tech. What are we doing right now?" And then I was like, "Okay, y'all, meet me." When you meet someone, you're like, "Meet me in the hallway." And so I
Mhm.
had, a Zoom, I had a webinar, and I was like, "All right, this is what y'all supposed to do." And I was like, "Good, you're good now." And then I'd go back to my regular life and people would email me, "Okay, we did what you said. Now what?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, that part." And then I'm like, "Okay, this is now what?" And they're like, "Great, I did what you did. I made some money. Now what? Now what about the kids? Now what about retirement?" I'm like, "Oh, geez, this is like taking up all this time." And this is how the Happy Investor Method came about. And
Out
so now
of
we're on 9 years.
Oh my gosh. So, like, out of genuine conversation, trying to level up the community, trying to make people owners, and then how do I do this? Okay, well, if I'm sending this email 10 times, I might as well make it a course, make it a webinar, make it a 1 hour chat. I just love the how organic it was. And I do want to say one more thing just about your take on social media, because the chat that you did, or the session that you led at FinCon, I think one of your opening lines was like, "I make a lot of money and I still have under 10,000 followers on Instagram." And I was like, "Oh, this is my girl." Like, I instantly knew. And I was like, she's in it for not the social media. Because think about all the people on social media who have a huge following and they're not doing anything. They're not making money. Yeah, they have followers, but they're not monetizing. And you're like, it's really not about the followers, y'all. It's just not. And it was that opening line in itself was like, all right, I was on the edge of my seat, notebook open, I was ready. So that moment stuck with me and I wanted to call that out.
I love
More
that.
people
Thanks
need
for
to hear
saying
that.
that.
Yeah.
They
But more
do.
people need to hear it, because I think now we're in this era of, well, if you don't have, 250,000 followers, like, what are you even doing with your life? And it's like, no, no, people are still making money. People are making lots of money and don't even care about social media. You can be one of those people too, you know?
Absolutely. And each follower is a person. I think people get so disconnected from what that means. You know, yeah, I still don't have 10,000. I might be at like
I know I checked last week.
9,230 something. Yeah, it's still not. I don't know. The algo just doesn't like, maybe I just talk too much smack. And Mark
No.
is like, "Chick, no, it, like has it out for me, whatever." But all this to say is I really do think that each follower it's an actual person. And so you don't need thousands of people. If you have 500 people to connect with your 500 people. If you have an email list or an amount of people that it's like 1,000, you have 1,000 people that actually said they want to hear what you have to say. And that is remarkable. And so for me, I know it really just takes one. It takes one person to change a life. And if I can change one person's life, I know that they can change someone else's life because what can happen for me can happen for you. And so that's why, even though I have had shame about my low followership, there are opportunities that I don't get because I'm not popular enough. But I also step back and think, well, what is the whole point of this? And it is to create a beautiful life that I absolutely love for myself and the people that love me too. And if we can make this world a better place together, let's do it. If I take care of my corner, You take care of your corner. At some point, the whole house is going to get cleaned.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. Mm. Okay. You open the account, it's got $96,000 in it. What do you do? Hopefully nothing, but sounds like your family was in need.
Mhm. And so I did a little bit. I did cash out some, not all of it. And that's also something different. People think that they're just investing for retirement. But I have cashed out, not fully cashed out, but I have liquidated multiple times of my life where my money has been there to really protect and provide for me. And so I'm not necessarily about the vanity of just looking at this number and then being on the struggle bus. Like, what is the point of that? And so it's okay to take profits off the table if there's a reason to take the profit off the table. I'm a really big proponent of that. And so I liquidated some to take care of my dad. I had liquidated some to help me with my business. Of course, I never liquidate all. I only liquidate like really, truly what I only need. Because sometimes it's like taking LeBron out the game when he's in playoffs. Like, all right, you just gonna come off to take a sip of water and get right back out there. I do not need you like relaxing right now. So I only take out a little bit as needed. I've taken it out to fund 2 maternity leaves for 8 months. I've
Good
taken
for
it out
you.
to buy other assets. And so now we're at the point where I'm buying other assets with investments. And that's why I think I've been able to become a passive millionaire at the rate that I have become a millionaire. And so it took a while. It took, a couple of times because I had a huge hole. And y'all know the hole, the crater that was. It's no more. But the investments have actually made that not be. And so from the 96,000, it still continued to grow. Like that account, even though I took out, eventually got to like 200 and change. It continued to grow. I was able to take it out and again buy real estate. And so we bought some real estate. We bought our first home, which was amazing. And then it kept going. Eventually, I was able to take some of that out and buy a hotel. And then that's really beautiful. That kept on going. Become an angel investor. It's like, oh, I have more free money here because that's really what your gains are. It's kind of like free money. And it's like, yeah, sure, I'll invest in the whiz. And so, like, I'm a producer.
Oh
And
my
it's kind of really
gosh.
fun how this money has allowed me to experience life in many different ways. Like, I bought an NFT. Don't recommend crypto ever, really, because it's super duper. It's like sprinkle money. It's really FOMO money. It's to help my FOMO self, my fear of missing out, but it's super duper risky. But at the same time, I bought it because it came with a wonderful trip to Ghana. And so
Mm.
I was like, yeah, the trip itself is worth more than the actual thing. And so, and because of that trip, I was able to meet other investors. And so it's so important to be in community because a lot of my investments at this point, they come because I'm an investor who has a circle and a community of other investors. And so I wouldn't have found out about the play, a lot about the hotels, if it wasn't for my community. And so all you have to do is be ready for the opportunity. And
So,
then that's what happens. Go for
I
it.
love it.
what I hear is that you thoroughly understood that money is a tool and you use it properly to, like you said, create the
Fund
life
your life.
to fund your life, to create the life that you want. I think too many people don't understand that money is a tool and that it's meant to be used.
Mhm.
And they, like you said, you weren't looking to just simply hoard it and just have it in an account and have a vanity number. You obviously want to grow it, but then in the course of doing that, you took it out, use it as a tool to, enhance your life, to have more assets.
Be home with your babies. I mean, an 8-month maternity leave, oh my gosh, people would that's priceless, you know? I mean, especially in this country. If you move somewhere else, you'll get that, but in this country, it truly is priceless. So I'm glad that you're using your money to live a beautiful life. And then, yeah, like, sometimes it's just about being in the room, right? Sometimes the opportunity is being in the room. Um, and we could do a whole separate episode on that, but that's where those opportunities come from. So that's really incredible. Talk to us about the community at the Happy Investor Method and what you're working on now and how people could be a part of it if they are feeling inspired by this conversation, which they should be at this point.
So at the Happy Investor Method, we're working on helping people become accredited And if they are accredited, actually use the accreditation. Now, if you're not familiar with what accreditation is, that's okay. This is something that was not talked about like ever. And I didn't find out about it until many years after investing. But this is that North Star. So in our country, you cannot invest in other riskier, more profitable, also could be profitable investments unless you're considered a high net worth individual. And that accreditation pretty much means that if you are married, it's $300,000 a year annually, or 250,000 if you're single. Um, and your earned income over 3 years, and then the government will consider you a high net worth individual. Or you can have $1 million or more in your net worth. But here's the kicker, y'all. For my LA, New York, house rich folks, it cannot include your primary residence.
Oh.
And so you cannot get into a lot of deals unless you're an accredited investor. Deals meaning, hey, you might not be able to get into a hotel deal. You might not be able to invest in, Lyft or Uber before they got on the stock market. Really ways to catapult your wealth. And so for me, that's our guiding light. That's a really good thing to work towards. And once you know that, that's what we do. But we try to do it in a way where it's uncompromising. And so for me, as a leader of the Happy Investor Method, what I do is I make sure that people kind of get to their goals around wealth. Some people have advisors, some people do it on their own. My goal is just for you to have a better relationship with your investments and really help you understand what investments are for you. And once you start excelling at that, in terms of you start learning the strategies, we have a whole method called the BELT method, helps you analyze a company in 20 minutes or less. And once you start doing that, now as a leader, I actually get to share deals with you because you're our community. And so there are a lot of our hotel deals where you'll look at the picture of us and you're like, whoa, isn't that her student? Yeah, it is my student because we take care of our people, right? If there's something, we have the super stock syndicate where we literally say, hey, this is a stock that looks like it could be really great. Yeah, we send it to our people. And so my goal is just for you to win. And it's a very different model because a lot of people tend to keep things to themselves. But I'm pretty clear that when I'm on the mountaintop, I do not want to be the only one on the mountaintop. My mountaintop is actually a field, right? It's still on a mountain, but it's a field. And I expect to see so many beautiful people there, like themselves, with their families, with their communities. And so in order to do that, we have to be intentional. And so that's kind of what we are about the Happy Investor Method. We're about intentional wealth on your terms.
I took the shortcut for the accredited investor by having certain licenses as a financial advisor.
Well, yes, you can do that too. There are other ways. And it's actually been made so much easier now in terms of other ways. And there are ways for unaccredited investors to get into
Crowdfunding
deals
and
as
yeah.
well. And so when I'm an angel investor in a platform that lets unaccredited investors um, get into deals as well, but there still just aren't. It's still a lot of a
Yeah.
who's who type of game.
Mhm. I mean, even just the fact that you're like, yes, I'm an investor in hotels and in the Wiz, and I'm a producer. And I mean, it's like, we need to have a whole separate episode to go down that route because that's so different. And that, honestly sounds so much more fun than an ETF or an
But
index fund or,
she
like,
has all the other basics taken
yes, the
care of,
basics are
which
taken
allow
care
her to
of.
do the other
No,
stuff.
I get it. But like sitting at the Wiz and seeing it and being like, wow, I helped do this. That is a way different feeling than like, let me pull up my Fidelity account and looking at your 401k, like that's the fun stuff. We're going to have a part two of this conversation, Ange, because I know we can dig into so much more. But I love your story and your grit and your determination and your like, I'm going to figure this out attitude. And I just love that. And I love too, we have so many guests on that really have that heart and spirit of giving. And I don't know if that is because of the community and we're all trying to help level each other up and we're all trying to get to the top of the mountain field, right? But it's just so beautiful that we're not hoarding the information. Like we want everybody to win, because we know it's going to uplift and build our communities and make our children better and have more possibilities. And, like our kids aren't going to have to get it out the mud, like that mentality stops with us. And I just love that there's so many people, obviously yourself included, doing such wonderful work to help get people to the top of the mountain. So I just love that.
Thanks. I
If
love
you
that you guys are doing this.
Thank you. If you had to leave our audience, our listeners, with a nugget, I mean, you've dropped gems, but if you're going to leave them with a final thought or nugget today about investing, about growing wealth, about managing money, what would it be?
Just try to be better than yesterday. And it's just not about, money. It's the wealth principles I teach are life principles. I'm a philosopher at heart. Actually, that's my degree in philosophy. I'm a philosopher. Um,
I
like
love
low
it.
key, a real one.
Yeah.
And, just try to do better than yesterday. And I think that might come from, being a kid of immigrants and also knowing that we can be really hard on ourselves, but have grace with yourself. Just take it one step at a time. I know that we have a guide. Actually, you get it at happyinvestorguide.com. It's like 7 steps preventing you from a high net worth.
Mm,
And there are technical things, but the reality is you're racing with yourself. And so you're not racing with anyone else because the reality is no one else is going to spend the money but you.
yeah, so
And no, the
true.
money's not going to take care of anybody else besides who you say it will. And so that means that you're racing against yourself. And if that's the case, just try to be better than yesterday. Be better than yesterday. And so that's my parting advice.
We love it. Thank you, Ange, for being with us today. This was so wonderful.
You're welcome. It was amazing. Thank you for having me. And yeah, we could definitely have another episode of like the life of Angie's money. A whole life. This
A
money got a
whole life.
whole babies, grandchildren. It's doing its own thing out here.
I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Talk soon.
Yay.
Sugar Daddy Podcast, yo. Learn how to make them pockets grow. Financial freedom's where we go. Smart investments, money.